If I can hit it, people will accept my honest opinion, even if it clashes with their own.
నా ప్రేమను కోపంగానో నా ప్రేమను ద్వేషంగానో నా ప్రేమను శాపంగానో చెలియా feel my love.
Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage and it's only a few more days before one of the most anticipated Indian movies of the year is coming out, Pushpa The Rise Part 1. Unfortunately, I won't be able to watch it immediately because I will already be on my way to my family for the Christmas holidays. Therefore, I decided to watch and review at least another movie by the same director. Dennis and I have already talked about Sukumar's previous film Rangasthalam, which we enjoyed a lot. And today I tackle his very first film Arya, which also, like Pushpa, stars Allu Arjun in the lead role. He plays the happy-go-lucky guy Arya, who falls madly in love with a college student Geeta. Unfortunately, she doesn't return his love and she's also already in a relationship with the rowdy RJ. Arya is a romantic action musical that was a big critical and commercial success when it came out. It introduced Sukumar as a promising new filmmaker, Allu Arjun as a great lead, and it was also remade into Bengali, Odia, Sinhala and Tamil. And there was also a spiritual sequel, again directed by Sukumar and starring Allu Arjun in 2009. At this point, I have watched and reviewed more than 300 Indian movies, and usually I don't find it that difficult to connect to a new movie and get on its wavelength. But once again, I think I have the hardest time with big commercial Telugu cinema, which is of course kind of absurd because after all it was S.S. Rajamouli's Bahubali who started this whole journey for us. But I think it can be a very fine line if something as big and broad and bonkers as Rajamouli's movies to work for me or not. Of course I'm still no expert, but with the few Telugu movies that I have seen, it wasn't always easy to accept this kind of cartoonish, very artificial, over-the-top style. I guess it's mostly about tone and if the particular story or concept fits that style. And unfortunately, I had really big issues with the story and approach in Arya. You always want my honest opinion and I will continue to be honest about my thoughts and feelings about a movie. Usually when I don't like something that much, I still start with the things that I enjoyed. And there are many elements in Arya that I really enjoyed. But I think it makes more sense this time to talk about my issues first and then later I will talk about the film's highlights as well. Now, it must be mentioned that the film is almost 20 years old at this point, and things that were normal or accepted in the past will of course change over time. Normally, I'm able to consider that and take the age of a film into consideration, but it's always a case-by-case thing and some things are easier to accept than others. Now, when I was looking for a trailer of the movie on YouTube to maybe use it for the introduction of my review, the very first thing that I found was Arya trailer, but it's a psychological thriller. So basically a recontextualization of the movie's love story. The creator of that trailer used images of the movie and let it appear as if it's not a harmless, sweet love story, but instead a story about a stalker who's torturing a young woman. Unfortunately, that's pretty much the vibe that I got from the original film, even without that fan-made trailer. Sukumar presents his hero as this hopeless lover who's friends with a lot of children and is seemingly harmless and innocent. But it was almost impossible for me to accept that. And at first I was pretty hopeful because the movie actually starts with the college rowdy RJ played by Shiva Balaji using some dirty tricks to more or less force Geeta into that relationship. And some characters in the film openly addresses this very common approach that apparently has been portrayed in many movies, with this movie promising to be different. So I was excited when our protagonist Arya is introduced because I hoped he would be more progressive. But then it was a big letdown because honestly he isn't that much better, and it certainly doesn't help that this is yet another case of love at first sight. I can definitely live with that trope in certain cases, but in a movie that's this stalker heavy and completely builds upon the love and dedication of our protagonist for this one woman, it's honestly quite problematic for me. Sure, you can call it love, but it's more like blind obsession. Arya, and unfortunately we as the audience, know absolutely nothing about Geeta except that she's an introvert. Arya sees her for the first time and immediately tells her that he loves her, and then for almost the entire film he overwhelms her with his feelings, even though she clearly has no interest and wants to be left alone. He also publicly exposes her time and time again, and for some reason most other people are very taken by him. And the film definitely wants the audience to be taken by him as well. And since this was a big hit, I have to accept that most people certainly were. But I wasn't, and because of that I also wasn't rooting for him, which then made it almost impossible to enjoy the film on any deeper level. Arya is a protagonist who doesn't take no for an answer, and it's a movie that seems to reaffirm that notion. Again, it's from 2004, and I also have to say that I did my fair share of similar behavior in the past as well. Of course, not exactly as in the movie, but I certainly recognized myself in it. But I'm not proud of that, and nowadays I see such behavior much more critical. I think the way the heroine Gita was portrayed also made it worse. If she was more of a badass, who doesn't tolerate such actions, or if she does, who is maybe more playful about it. But Gita, portrayed by the absolute newcomer Anuradha Mehta, seems to be in constant pain. She's almost always shown as sad, and honestly that makes a lot of sense, because she has two men in her life who don't allow her to breathe or choose on her own account. But it's just so painful to watch. Again, we learn basically nothing about her personality, and we just see her being miserable all the time. And to make things worse, she was forced or manipulated into this relationship that she didn't want, and later it's depicted as something that she then kind of warms up to. Meanwhile, we should root for a guy who also knows nothing about her, but who stalks her and suffocates her with his feelings. Maybe this would have worked for me in 2004. In 2021, it's a hard sell. Now, let's slowly begin with the stuff that I liked or partially liked. I do think it gets slightly better as it progresses, and the idea of a hero who loves a girl but loves her so much that he gets to the point where he's fighting for the girl to be with someone else because he just wants her to be happy, that's actually something different and has some charm. It didn't work completely for me here, but I enjoyed the fact that Arya isn't just another aggressive macho who wants to fight RJ. Especially in the second half that almost turns into a little road movie, I enjoyed the dynamic between our three leads a lot more. Still, the character of Gita was far too underwritten, and RJ was kind of bland as well. It also felt really strange how RJ's powerful father more or less wanted Gita and Arya killed, and then got persuaded by his son otherwise, in the off, without us actually witnessing it. It made for not the most believable finale. And while both Anuradha Mehta and Shiva Balaji remained rather stale, also because of the script, I have to say that Allu Arjun did a pretty great job. I have big issues with the character and how it is portrayed in the movie, but I can still say that the performance itself is pretty good. He's certainly charming and charismatic, he has a lot of energy, and he can definitely dance. And now I'm coming to what's easily my biggest highlight of the film. The soundtrack, composed by Devi Sri Prasad, is pretty fantastic. There's a little cringe element to some of the songs and lyrics, but damn are they contagious as well, and the dance sequences are all really nice. Especially the song A Ante Amalapuram, through which I could barely sit still. It's this long dance number on a train that certainly reminded me of Chaya Chaya from the Mani Ratnam film Dil Se. I don't think it's really necessary at all for the story or even characters, but it nonetheless put a huge smile on my face. In general, I warmed up to the film much more in the second half, and a few action moments were also pretty fun. And the film certainly has style to it, and there are wonderful and fun little moments throughout. So I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but I just couldn't accept this antiquated and I think problematic approach or concept of love. So in German I'd say, Arya hat einen ziemlich starken Soundtrack und ohne Frage gute Momente. Aber die Art und Weise, wie hier einseitige Liebe glorifiziert wird, halte ich einfach für bedenklich. I give Arya 5 out of 10. It's more like 5.4, but I don't do that. Alright, that's it like always. Comment below and let me know what you think about Arya. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram and Letterboxd, and also on Patreon, simply at TheJimmyCage. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all I have to tell.